thought I'd take this chance. I never lose the opportunity to try to make a couple of comments about leadership, and that's what this topic is about. And I thought I'd take you through an exercise. Terry Loudon stimulated me to think about that with her comments about patient-centeredness. And it was Will Mayo in Chicago at the Rush Medical School graduation in 1911. Am I right? 1910. I always got I don't know why I like 11. Maybe it was 9/11 because I was in the air when that occurred. 1910, he gave a speech at the graduating class. Will Mayo, he's one of our founding fathers. And he said, his quote goes something like this. He says, "The best interest of the patient is the only interest to be considered," which is now our core value. It's been Mayo Clinic's core value for as long as I've been there, and probably maybe 20, 30 years before that, when it officially became the core value of Mayo Clinic. The best interest of the patient is the only interest to be considered. But it's key to read the sentence because there's a comma and it continues. And it goes on and says, "In order to bring advancing science to the benefit of the patient, a union of forces is necessary." It's 1910, the concepts of patient-centered care surrounded by integration, collaboration, teamwork, thinking, system thinking. And when you couple that with the fact that they hired the first system engineer at Mayo Clinic in 1901, 9 years before that quote, who, Henry Plummer, who was a physician, created the unified paper record in 1907, you recognize that these people were serious about putting the patient in the middle and designing a system around the patient and what's good for them. Now, let's take that and jump to the future. The concept of focusing on the patient and thinking about the system approach of how do we care for people. And I want to link that with leadership. My feeling about leadership is, number one, it's all about responsibility. Does a person feel responsible? And as Paul O'Neill says, feel responsible for everything, especially when something goes wrong. And if you're dealing with somebody that you're bringing up through the mentoring process that does not feel responsible, find somebody else. You got to start with something. And at Mayo Clinic, I look for responsibility and that their core value matches the core value of Mayo Clinic, which is under stress, you default to the patient. The patient is at the center. But that's just one component of leadership. Leadership has then some obligations with it. And the first job of leadership, this is my opinion now, is to spend an awful lot of time thinking about what a vision should be for the organization, for healthcare, whatever you want to put. Think about the vision. Now, just thinking about the vision just makes you visionary. You have to create a shared vision in the institution or at the national level. You have to spend a lot of time thinking about what the vision is and then create a shared vision so that everyone that you're dealing with thinks that vision is their idea. It takes a long time, and you have to get to at least the square root of N of your organization, membership in the organization, to begin to see that vision start to spread out through the organization so that everyone says, hey, that was my idea. It wasn't the leader's idea or anybody else. It's a shared vision. That's a pretty hard job. But the third component of leadership is harder, in my view. And the third component is to spend a lot of time to create the shared reality of where we are. Many people, all my colleagues from Mayo have heard me say this enough, they're probably sick of hearing this sort of stuff, but the gap between the shared vision and the shared reality is the work that has to be done. That's the job that has to be done. This is the kind of discussion I'd like to see taking place at the national level about what is the real vision for healthcare, and you all have it in this room. Some subtle differences, but the big vision is there. getting that shared reality of the gap and getting leadership to have the courage to stand up and say, we want to be there in 7 years. And set that as a goal. It's the moonshot type of goal. And say, that's where we want to be. And then let the rest of us, give us the permission to have our organizations get us there. And we know that that can be done. So again, I thank you very much for this honor. I accept it on behalf of all of my colleagues that have helped me. I'm thinking particularly who started some of our health policy work, Bob Smolt, who instigated that several years ago with the Jerry Garcia quote, by the way, that somebody else used today. Somebody's got to do something, and it just seems to be pathetic that it has to be us. And that's what Bob used to drive home to our Board of Trustees, 10 years ago. He was saying we need to really do something. Chris Gotti, who helped launch the program on our Health Policy Center, and Jeff Korsmo now, who is, since Bob is retired, he's taken over as the director of the Health Policy Center. So on behalf of all of my colleagues, thank you very much for recognizing the work that we've been doing.